started looking at movement because of the way that I felt in live music events and gigs. The people were moving around me and the strobe light would fragment that. And I always thought that was so beautiful, and the ways of capturing that in a painting or in a photograph, the way that other people could appreciate what I did, that's something that inspired me to do this movement. I looked at an artist called Clara Lou who did figurative abstraction, because last year my marks were empty and they had no cohesiveness about them. It was kind of forced. All my work looked like I'd just been abstract for the sake of being abstract. By incorporating a figure into my abstraction, it gave it a subject and a meaning, a much more personal connection to what I was doing. To begin that, I started looking at photography, inspired by William Wadman, using long exposure and shutter speeds to take pictures of people. By doing that, their motion was captured into lines and forms that I could more easily portray into abstract style. So by doing that, I then started recontextualising these photographs, layering them with acetate and paint, extending their movements, layering their movements to show their transition through each picture. So I worked onto a larger scale, A1, inspired by both the photography I'd done inspired by William Wadman and both Clara Lou, expressing the form that I'd seen in front of me. However, I found that these didn't have any kind of figure. They were too distant from what I was trying to portray. So from this I started doing life drawing and studying hands in a more realistic fashion. This kind of in a way showed that I could work in completely connected to the human form, showing it in a more realistic way rather than just expressive lines in response to. I worked from both life and taking pictures, so I took pictures of my hands in weird contorted manners, and I worked by doing line drawing, looking at my hand and then drawing at the page, continual line and full shaded realistic drawings. By this I began to put this work back into my study of the figure from my William Wadman shoots. This gave my work more structure. It was more evident that they were portraying gesture. In my first year I looked at artists such as Peter Bruning or Gerhard Richter, Jackson Pollock, and I recently found out that there was an abstract expressionist exhibition at the Royal Academy of Arts. This was the largest collection of abstract expressionist paintings there's been in, I think it's 100 years. So by going to this art exhibition I could truly appreciate the work firsthand. Here I saw a piece by Mark Rothko, number 15, and it completely changed the way that I looked at abstract art. The colour, I described it as almost deafening. It was in the middle of an archway, stood there, and it was absolutely breathtaking. It reduced me to tears. It was the most emotional piece of artwork I've ever seen. I also found at this exhibition work by William de Kooning. This tone of blue was also transferred into his work there, but what I found mainly was the depth of his marks. I found William de Kooning's work really interesting because the way his mark making was, it was so fluid, and the way that he'd obviously gone with so much excitation onto the board. You could see the way that he put the paint on there. You could see how much motion was put into every single mark on that board. And that's something that I wanted to portray in my work. That alongside with the deep blue colours of Mark Rothko that affected me so deeply, that's what I wanted to be on my work. I didn't need necessarily to put figures moving onto my final piece for it to portray the movement I wanted it to feel. I just needed expressive mark making, different varieties of mark making, large, big ones with brushes or cardboard, and then fine details, and then scratching into the work, all with this cohesiveness of the deep blue colour that Mark Rothko presented, and with a figurative abstraction that I'd found from Clara Lou Experiments book, which I derived after my visit to the Royal Academy of Arts, so I could focus texture on my canvases that could only be really truly appreciated when seeing them up close. I had an observational drawing sketchbook where I took it outside and study people in natural environments such as in cafes or in libraries or in galleries, and then took drawings of them, quite quick drawings. I also expanded my drawings from Clara Lou into this sketchbook, so experiencing marks in different ways that people's gestures portray. I then had a sketchbook where I focused mainly on recontextualising images with different mediums, so layering photographs with acetate and paint, ink printing like marbling and stuff, and then sewing into these works, completing life drawing over photographs with markers and thread also having in this sketchbook. This was like a combination of all the different techniques all together. Upon completion of my final outcome, I presented them as 4 canvases across the wall, a very laminated format. However, I felt they didn't portray the movement that I was intending to. If I was trying to portray the way I felt at a gig, it felt like the artwork needed to move around me. Inspired by the documentary Nova, I created an installation in order for the viewer of my work to become part of the work, and that's where they would really appreciate it. I created almost a box of my 4 canvases where the viewer of the work had to be inside it to truly appreciate it. The way that I feel at gigs is encased by what is going on around me. The movement is almost like I can't help but move with what's going on. With having to go inside my artwork to appreciate it, the canvases sway slightly because of the way they're attached to the ceiling. And a lot of people said that they feel like they're moving with the work, and if people are coming out of there not sure before what it is trying to display and then saying that they feel like they're moving, feeling almost seasick with the motion around them, I think
just like really cool. Like I don't really know where I am.
Yeah,
Type
disorientated.
thing, yeah.
You don't know where you are. You
Yeah,
feel dizzy.
and then you keep on looking around and you start getting
Everything's
dizzy,
moving.
and then it's
because you expect to see something figurative because that's what we see around us every single day, and because it's just lines and paint and lines and paint, and you're like,
it's
where
as
am
if
I?
it's like the movement of going around in circles of being dizzy, and like that's what you see and everything.
describe how it made you feel.
Very nauseous and very, like my legs were going to jelly. I had no idea really what way I was facing after a while because there's a lot to take in.
By also being inside the artwork and being very, very close to each individual canvas in a very confined space, you're forced to appreciate every single mark in that work, every single piece of texture, with the burnt glue, with the dripped varnish, with the dripped paint, with thick layers of oil paint, individual stitches, you can see them all. That's something I felt when I was at the Royal Academy of Arts.